Hey, what the heck? What the heck? Sorry guys. Okay, it seems like we have a full attendance today. This definitely shows that term 2, it is approaching. If you were not part of the 7,000 people which attended the assembly this morning, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel, hey my guy, comment and say, I will be there. All right, so our topic for today, it is called the river profile. Remember, we are on grade 12, meaning we now learn more about the rivers. So there are two types of river profiles. There's a longitudinal profile and a cross, or we could say a transverse profile. Okay, and for us to better understand these two types of river profiles, we definitely have to draw some sketches. So we definitely have to draw some sketches. So our first sketch will be the longitudinal profile sketch, right? So this is how it looks like. This is our longitudinal sketch. When you're looking at the sketch, what instantly comes to your mind? You can definitely see that it tells or it shows us the length, right, of the river. The length of the river from where to where? From our source to our mouth. So it shows us the length of the river, and also it shows us the gradient of the river bed. It tells us the gradient of the river bed, and it also shows us the length of the river bed. All right, you might ask yourself, Sam Numzani, you have spoken a lot about longitudinal profile. What is a longitudinal profile? In a simple form, you'll just say it is a side view of a river from a source to the mouth. You have definitely done. And you could also add that what shape is this? Which shape is this longitudinal profile? We call it our concave. If you do not remember, go back to your grade 10 textbook. This is our concave shape, right? This is our longitudinal profile. Then we also have our second profile, which is called the cross, or they could say the transverse profile. How does a cross or a transverse profile look like? It definitely looks like something like this, right? We can say it looks like that. Yes, all right. So what do you see when you are looking at the cross or a transverse profile? You can definitely see the width of the river from where? From a bank to bank. You can see the width of the river, and you could also see what we call the height of the river. The height of the river, the width of the river, the length of the river, the gradient of the river bed. All right, guys. So what definition do we actually give the cross or the transverse profile? We say it is a front view of a river which shows from a bank to bank. It is a front view of a river which shows from bank to bank. Okay, and what else does it actually shows us? It shows us the volume of the water which we find on the river, on that particular river. The volume of the water which is found on a particular river which we are studying about. All right, guys, so now we are moving to our 3 different courses, and obviously move into the processes as well. All right, make sure you stay tuned while I still wipe this board. Okay, and now we are moving to our 3 types of river courses. For you to better understand them, we have to use the very same profiles which we use to identify, or which we use to differentiate. All right, firstly we start with our longitudinal profile. It will look much bigger this time, so this is our nicest longitudinal profile, guys. Okay, so our longitudinal profile, we might say this is how it looks, right? This is how it looks. This is our longitudinal profile. All right, as I've said, there are 3 types of river courses, meaning there's this first river course, there's this second river course, and this last river course. Yes, now that we understand that we have 3 different river courses, it definitely means we have to identify them. We have to give them names. They have to be given their names. So when we are looking at our structure, we definitely see that our river obviously flows from a higher altitude to a lower altitude. So in the higher altitude, this is obviously what is called our upper course. So this is our upper course. And then we move to our middle course. I think I just named it. Yes, this is our middle course. Simple as that. And then lastly, at the lowest point of our river, we have our lower course. Yes, this is our lower course. Yes, and knowing exam, I know they might try to be tricky and not actually ask you about the 3 types of river course and ask you about the 3 types of river stages and say which river stage is the upper course. You must definitely know that the river stage in the upper course, it is the young stage. The river, it is flowing at the high speed. Why is it flowing at the high speed? Because of when we are looking at the gradient of this longitudinal profile, we can definitely see that it is very steep. So our upper course, it is associated with steep. So in the upper course, it is very steep. The gradient, it is steep. Meaning the river discharge, which we just spoke about in the video before this one, means this is a turbulent flow. This is a turbulent flow, right? This is our turbulent flow. And when we have a steep gradient and water is moving at the highest pace and a highest speed, that will obviously mean this area will be associated with erosion. Because of water, it is moving at the highest speed, it can obviously erode the soil which can be found within the area or any sediments because of the water, it is moving at a high speed. And that will obviously create a fluvial landforms such as waterfall. So here we can obviously see that here there might be what we call a waterfall. This is our part of fluvial landform. We'll learn about fluvial landform. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel because of we are moving to much deeper geomorphology. All right, so now we know that this upper course, it is associated with steep turbulent flow and waterfalls and even rapids. Because of the river bed or the gradient in the upper course, it is not even, meaning there is obviously will be some rapids as well. There will be some rapids on the upper course. What are rapids, guys? You'll understand more of this when we move into fluvial landform. Just pay attention and understand the gradient, the processes that are happening within the longitudinal profile and the cross, or we could say the transverse profile. Then we move to our middle course. In the middle course, which stage is the river at? We say it is the mature stage. Wow, I love this one. It is the mature stage. It has obviously grown up. It is no longer moving at a high speed. It has to take some turns and find a job and find, you understand? Meaning here we have a gradual gradient. The gradient of the slope, it is gradual, meaning it is either steep or either gentle. It is in between. It is gradual, meaning the turbulent flow, it is lessened, and also the laminar flow, it is not also on a high speed. So they are also in balance and no one is bigger than the other here. There's a mixture of everything. So this is, we know that this is our gradual gradient, and we know that it is flowing in between less turbulent and also less laminar, so it is in between. Yes, and remember, because of here there was what we call erosion, right? There is predominantly erosion here, nothing else. There is erosion, meaning the removal of sediments and soil from the upper course into the lower course will obviously create a gradual area in the lower course, meaning if it was steep, the soil coming into here will obviously try to flatten up the area and try to make the area a bit level, right? So there is both a lot of water pressure and a lot of sediments coming from the upper course, meaning the gradual or the river in the middle course will now do what? Will start to expand on the sides. It will expand, right? Because of there is a lot of erosion, sediments coming from erosion, and there's water coming on a high speed, and now the area is no longer steep. It is now in a gradual form, meaning it has to collect as much meaning it has to expand its river channels. So in the middle course, the river channel expands a bit, and we are associated here with what we call meanders, right? So there's meandering here happening, young told. There's meandering happening here, meaning the river, it is no longer flowing on a straight direction, but then it is taking some turns and whatever, because of there is a huge load coming from an upper course, both the sediments and both the water. So it has to associate and juggle both in the middle course, right? So we know that the middle course gradual slope, and it also do what? Transports the erosion coming from the upper course and the water coming from the upper course into the lower course. So we know that this is called our transportation. The middle course is usually known as the transportation, but then the mature stage. All right, now we have to move to our lower course. All right, guys. If you think I've not mentioned the types of erosion which obviously occur between the upper course and the middle course, don't worry, because we'll name them gahle, or we'll name them well when we move into the cross or the transverse profile to understand the middle course, the upper course, and the lower course using the cross or the transverse profile. So now obviously, because of the area, it is starting to be gentle, right? Meaning the water, it is doing what? It is no longer moving at the high speed, meaning there's no longer erosion, there's less erosion. What is associated here? Let's first start by writing, this is our gentle gradient, right? The gradient is gentle, as we can see, because of the deposition which was transported coming from the upper course into the lower course. The gradient will be obviously leveled because of the soil which was obviously coming from the upper course, transported in the middle course, and now will be dumped in the lower course. So it becomes gentle, meaning the flow of the river discharge, it is the laminar flow, right? Now we know that we have a laminar flow here. And what else do we know? We know that it is associated with deposition, right, and no longer erosion. So there's deposition here. They usually say alluvium deposition. So there's a lot of deposition. When they say alluvium, they are mixing all the sediments which will obviously be collected throughout the course of the river. And what else can we say about the lower course? We can say the lower course, it is also associated with meanders or floodplains, or a lot of deltas. We can say floodplains and deltas. But then also oxbows and meanders, right? Floodplains. And what are these things that I'm busy naming? Floodplains, meanders, waterfall, and even rapids here. What is Sam Numzane talking about? Be patient. Make sure you like this video, because you are definitely moving towards the Fluvial landform. We can't understand the landforms without understanding the gradient. What causes the different changes of the land form? It is the gradient, guys. Okay, so now that I know you have obviously taken some screenshots here, have you done that? Make sure that you start doing that, because of what I'm about to do is that I'm about to wipe our middle course, right? And I'm about to wipe our upper course. Why am I doing so? So that we could understand the transverse or the cross profile when we are on the upper course, middle course, and lower course. So on the upper course, we have what we call a V-shaped valley, right? So this is how it look like. This is a cross-section on the upper course, guys. You remember cross-section, right? It shows us from bank to bank, the front view of the river. Yes. So in the upper course, it is like a V, meaning there's what we call here erosion, which is deepening the valley, What erosion do we call that? This erosion which is moving downward because of the steep gradient, we call it the vertical erosion, or we could say the downward erosion. Yes, this is our vertical erosion or the downward erosion. This is the V-shaped valley, right? A V-shaped valley. Then we are moving to our middle course. We can say it is a U-shaped valley. So we draw our first U here and our river banks. We draw our first U and our river banks. Now we know this is our middle course. Our middle course has a wider V. The V has widened up. Why? Because of the load which we talk about. You remember the loads which we talk about, that maybe in this area there will be what we call deposition. Here there will be what we call erosion. So maybe this area will be much deeper than the area where there's a deposition. This is usually found when we'll start learning about meandering. Make sure that you take screenshot. Hey, my brother. All right. So what erosion? It is associated with the middle course. Because of I've already spoken about the sides, this definitely means that it is widened up, meaning there is erosion happening on the sides. What is it called? It is called the lateral erosion, right? This is our lateral erosion, which is the erosion which erodes the sides of the river, the sides of the river channel. Then we move to our last lower course. How does it look like when we are looking at the cross or a transverse profile? It is obviously extremely wider. So this is how it looks like. It is very much wide, guys. Very, very much wider than any other of these ones. Why? Because of it is associated with what we call a lot of deposition, meaning that the river channel becomes a bit wider because of it has been deposited. So now the river channel, it is no longer this piece. Because of there has been deposition here and deposition here, it begins to be a bit wider. It opens up more of what we call lateral erosion because of the river no longer has too much energy to erode for what we call backward erosion or headward erosion. It can't do that because of now there's less energy. Why? Because of the gradients of the slope. The slope, it is gentle, meaning there's a laminar flow, less erosion, a lot of deposition. So here we have what we call deposition, alluvium deposition, while here we have lateral erosion and here we had vertical erosion. Guys, those are the three processes which occur in these three different courses of the river. Okay, finally, moving into the river grading. What is the river grading? It simply means it is the balance between the rate of erosion and the rate of deposition. For us to better understand the two types of river grading, we definitely have to draw these two types of sketches. All right, so we'll be using our longitudinal profile. Why? Because of longitudinal profile obviously shows us the gradient of the river bed. That's what we are actually looking at when we are looking at the river grading, right? So this is our obviously what we call graded profile. Our graded profile, this is how it looks like. Which shape do you actually see when you are looking at this? I've obviously said this before. This is what we call a concave. Yes, this is our concave shape, right? It's not just any concave shape. We can see that it is very smooth. The gradient, it is very smooth. So this is our smooth concave, right? This is our smooth concave. Remember, what is this? This is our graded profile, right? Graded. All right, how do you actually identify a concave shape? A concave shape simply means in the upper course, it is very steep, while in the lower course, it is very gentle. So that's what you actually say when they ask you about the graded profile. You say it has a smooth concave shape, which has a steeper upper course and a gentler lower course. You are done. You have gotten your 2 marks or your 5 marks when you are looking at the graded profile. And then we move to our 24 marks. It might be 24 marks because of this can be a bit complicated. This is our second river grading, right? Our second river grading, it is called the ungraded river profile. It is the ungraded. This is how it actually looks like, right? So the ungraded obviously doesn't have to have that balance in the world, right? So this is our ungraded. That is obviously our sea level, and this is our nicest plateau or our nicest longitudinal profile. When you are looking at an ungraded profile, what instantly comes to your mind? This is obviously uneven, right? This is uneven, Meaning when it is uneven, when the gradient it is uneven, it is obviously associated with fluvial landforms such as waterfall, right? Waterfall, and such as we could say lakes. So here there could be what we call lakes, right? These are lakes, or dams. You could find dams here, right? And this is what we call this. This we call our Knickpoint. This is where we find our Knickpoint. What is our Knickpoint? Our Knickpoint, it is the sharp change in the gradient. When the gradient tends to be steep, the sharp, steep change of the gradient. So it is our Knickpoint. When you see a Knickpoint, you definitely have to think that this area has to be associated with waterfalls, rapids, because of a Knickpoint obviously shows that this area, it is not even. Meaning when the water comes here, it will obviously drop vertically again, and it will obviously be like this. So they could either be waterfall here or rapids. Rapids when water, it is moving like this because of the uneven riverbed. And lastly, what do we have here? We have here the last part, which is called our permanent base level. Yes, this is our permanent base level. Okay, what is a permanent base level? A permanent base level simply means it is the lowest point in which water or river can erode. It is the lowest point in which a water or a river can erode. It is usually within the level of the sea level. So where you find the permanent base level, it is usually within the sea level. It is the same level as the sea. And we do not only have a permanent base level. If we have a permanent, we definitely have to have a temporary, or we could call it a local base level. That's what it's called. This one here, yes, this area here, it is called our nicest temporary or our local base level. This is our local base level. What is a local base level? A local base level simply means it is a structure or a physical feature which delays further erosion. It delays further erosion. What usually delays further erosion? Lakes. So if there is obviously water coming at a high speed, it will obviously was going to erode going down. Because of there's a lake here, now the water starts to level up, and then the erosion, it is weakened before it can erode again vertically, right? So it does what? It delays the erosion. It delays erosion, the local base level. All right, guys. So the local base level, they can either be two. They can be a human-made local base level, or they could be just a natural base level. So a human-made usually is a dam. So a dam obviously does what? It stores the water and does what? Disturbs or delay further erosion of that water, further movement of that water. It disturbs or it delays the further movement of the water. Yes, and what else? We also find the natural features. Yes, the natural features such as the lakes and waterfall and rapids are the ones that are usually delaying also the further erosion, right? They also delay further erosion. Now we know that we have a local base level, a temporary base level, a Knickpoint, the lakes, the waterfall, in where there is what we call an ungraded. This is our ungraded profile. This is our ungraded river profile, meaning it is very much uneven. There is everything happening here. We could see there is a lot of erosion happening here. It is not a smooth concave, meaning it is not a smooth concave shape. That is the shape, not a smooth concave. Guys, these are your free marks. If you are not getting free marks here, I don't know what you want from me, guys. And also, here's another free mark for you, because of I know they like to ask for paragraph questions. They might say, write us an 8-line paragraph whereby an ungraded river profile turns into a graded river profile. Yes, it is very much possible. An ungraded, which obviously has a lot of obstacles and it obviously has a turbulent flow. Here there's a laminar flow. Yes, it could be changed. It can be changed into this smooth concave shape. How does that occur? It occurs when by the upper course it is now dominated by vertical erosion or downward erosion. So we know it will obviously look like this, right? It will obviously look like this because of now there's vertical or downward erosion which is dominating the upper course, which will obviously erode the soil here, and then here in the middle course or between the upper course to the middle course, the headward erosion will be occurring, which will obviously do what? Remove the fluvial landforms such as waterfall, lakes and local base levels, things like that, and dams, and you understand the rapids, the things that will obviously be removed by headward erosion, and then the deposition of soil will be obviously into the lower course. All this soil coming from the upper course, middle course will be deposited into the lower course, and that will obviously create a smoother lower course, which will obviously create a gentle lower course, and that's how the balance between the rate of erosion and the rate of deposition can be sustained, whereby the upper course vertical erosion is dominant, headward erosion, deposition. That is how you balance the two. So meaning here in our ungraded, there's no one which is bigger than the other. There's no boss. There's no boss. Erosion is not bigger than deposition. That's why it is uneven. Yes, and lastly, we move to our river rejuvenation. What is the river rejuvenation? It is obviously the process whereby water, it is given a much needed oxygen, or it is re-energized. Yes, the river has been re-energized. What usually causes that to happen? The drop in sea level. Obviously, if the sea level drops, that means the gradient of the slope will obviously drop, then the water will now be moving faster, right? And obviously what also, if there has been some upliftment of the land, obviously the water will be flowing faster because of the land will be much steeper, and obviously faster water will be given much needed oxygen. Or also when there's precipitation, right, the water will be given much needed energy to continue and erode until it creates a graded profile, or yeah, whatever you may say. And now that you understand our river profile, we can obviously smoothly move into our fluvial landforms. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, because I will make sure that fluvial landform will be out within 5 days or 6 days after this video has been released. Okay.